Hey guys, you've heard of the Young Turks podcast because you're listening to it right now. But make sure that you subscribe and give it a 5-star rating if you like it. Thank you for listening.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks on a crazy, momentous day. Iowa caucus. What now? Jake Huger, Anna Kasparian. Look, we got a 2-hour show for you guys, chock full of news. Look, the Hillary Clinton, Rashida Tlaib, John Kerry stuff, it goes to 11. Okay, my rage, passion, whatever you want to call it, goes to 11. So we're gonna get to that in a little bit. Here comes Bernie. Okay, tonight, I've got great guests for you guys too. Amanda Turkle from Huffington Post, she's the Washington bureau chief. We got Crystal Ball on the show. We got a post game for you guys, but then starting at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern, here comes Iowa. Today's the day. Today's the day. Iowa caucuses, we will have results. We will have a winner. Look, Bernie can lose and then it'll be devastating. Or Bernie can win and maybe win by a lot. I don't say it yet. No. We don't know anything yet. But me, Anna, John, Ben, and Emma's in Iowa, and she's gonna join us from Iowa and give us a report as to what's happening. Bernie is leading in the latest set of polls, and there's drama around that as well, as we're gonna get to right away. But anything can happen today. But today is the day where we begin, if we're lucky and going in the right direction, the progressive era. I said it.
All right, well, luckily we can go to the Des Moines Register poll to figure out.
Oh, let's figure it out, let's go to it.
Except no, apparently they got word from their boss, Pete Buttigieg, and that poll will not be coming out. So we'll talk about that story first. Why don't we get right to it?
Let's do it.
All right. Some scandal and intrigue regarding the Iowa caucuses. Of course, the Iowa caucuses will take place today, but in the lead up to it, everyone was expecting the Des Moines Register poll. This is a coveted poll that everyone was looking forward to, just analyzing to figure out who the likely winner in the Democratic primary will be in Iowa. And here's what we found out. CNN and the Des Moines Register chose not to release this key poll because Pete Buttigieg's campaign was concerned that there was a human error in conducting the poll. So via tweet, it was confirmed that our campaign received a report from a recipient of the Iowa poll call, raising concerns that not every candidate was named by the interviewer when asked who they support. We shared this with the organizations behind the poll, who conducted an internal investigation and determined not to release it. We applaud CNN and the Des Moines Register for their integrity. So what happened? Turns out that the poll was conducted by telephone, and it was conducted from a call center where operators read from a prepared script of candidates' names to determine who a voter plans to support. Apparently, one operator had enlarged the font size on their computer screen, perhaps cutting off Buttigieg's name from the list of options, and that's according to 2 people familiar with the incident who did not have permission to speak about it publicly. So sounds like that's the excuse they're using, that this was a big enough error to decide to scrap the poll altogether. They will not be releasing it.
Okay, so let's talk about why people are scratching their heads over this. So a couple of reasons. Number one, if you believe in political intrigue, if you were trailing in that poll badly, CNN was going to do a whole hour-long special about the poll. You would not want that broadcast right before the election. This is not a great thing about people in general, but it is true that if people get a sense that someone is winning, they are more likely to vote for them. Now, I wish that weren't the case because that makes no logical sense, but people do act that way. In fact, that's why I said the media rigged the last election in favor of Hillary Clinton more than anyone, because they kept putting up superdelegate count when the superdelegates hadn't voted yet. It gave the appearance that she had an overwhelming lead. And we know that that psychological factor helps the person with the lead. So CNN was about not only Des Moines Register poll, but CNN was gonna broadcast the whole nation about how Bernie had a giant lead. And then
you can't do that.
No. So now the second part of it is, so if you were the person who doesn't have that lead, who used to have that lead, Buttigieg, but no longer does and has now slipped considerably in all the polling, Buttigieg, you would not want that special to go on under any circumstances. So I don't know that they had somebody say, hey, maybe I didn't hear Buttigieg's name, and maybe that's a good reason to pull it. I don't know that, okay? But some people are scratching their heads. Now, let's just flip it for a second. Could you imagine if a Bernie Sanders supporter said, I didn't see Bernie's name on the poll?
I can imagine it. I can certainly imagine it.
That the Des Moines Register and the New York Times and CNN would all pull what they were doing.
That I can't imagine.
What they had planned for 4 years in terms of Des Moines Register, the last poll before Iowa. This is their moment in the sun. Right. CNN is going to do an hour-long show that they've already planned. And one Bernie Sanders supporter complained, they would never, ever pull it, and everyone knows it.
No, but hold on, let's start from like the very beginning of the story. One Buttigieg supporter raised concerns, one.
That's right.
One.
Yes.
And then the Buttigieg camp confirmed, said, hey, we have this one supporter who said this is what happened. They launched an internal investigation. Like, I think it's the right thing to do because you want to be fair. So I'm not even mad at Buttigieg raising the concern. I mean, put yourself in his shoes, I would do the same thing, right? But I do have a problem with this obvious double standard because how many times have there been issues with polls not mentioning Bernie? How many times have issues been raised, even when it comes to actual voting and what happens to people who vote for Bernie at the polls, right? But no one cares. It doesn't matter if there's like a giant wave of people complaining or finding some sort of injustice in how things are done. There's never any type of internal investigation.
Yeah, people online were joking like this is Buttigieg asking to see the manager, right? I want to see your manager, okay?
Yeah.
And you know that if you're a certain category of folks and you want to see the manager, it ain't gonna work out for you. If you're another category of folks, it's gonna work out glowingly. And that's what happened here. In this case, it isn't about race at all, it's establishment privilege. So if a progressive complains, they're like, oh, you guys are always complaining. So what, we left you out of the poll, so what? So what? Go cry somewhere else.
So what if we tell everyone that your preferred candidate makes our skin crawl, but we don't give any reason for it? So why are you guys always complaining? What's the problem? Yeah, exactly.
But Buttigieg says, you gotta trust me. You gotta trust me, and you gotta trust my one supporter that it really happened. Based on that, I'm gonna sink the entire, well, the establishment guy asked. There was a report of a one guy maybe, and they sank the whole thing, okay? Now, to back up Anna's point, oftentimes progressives are even left out of polls. At this point, obviously they're not gonna leave Bernie out of a poll that he's leading in. I say obviously, it's only semi-obvious. Anyway, but at the congressional level, at the state level, et cetera, whenever a progressive is running, a lot of times, not every time, not at all, but a lot of times they get left out of polls entirely. They're like, oh, please, you are not endorsed by anyone in the establishment. No, we shall not even put you in a poll. And the progressive candidate, their supporters can complain. It never matters. It always falls on deaf ears. But if an establishment figure has one person who's a maybe, you just crater everything. And last thing, do you know what's happening in the California ballot? It's unbelievable. They went to a new digital ballot. Buttigieg is complaining about this. In the new digital ballot in California, there's only 4 candidates per page, and you're allowed to vote after the first page. And you don't necessarily know that there's a second page. So for the presidential election, the only major candidate on the first page is Elizabeth Warren. Bernie's number 8 on the list. A lot of people won't have any idea that they have to scroll down. They don't know that you have to scroll down. So they might never see Bernie. By the way, it's not a conspiracy. Joe Biden's screwed even worse. He's at number 16.
Well, maybe they'll do something about it then.
No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
That was the best news, was that Biden was at 16.
Right.
No offense to Biden, I'm not trying to, that's random, right? And I just told you it's not conspiratorial, right? And so I feel bad for Biden, and he shouldn't get screwed either, right? But the fact that Biden's at number 16 means somebody might do something about it.
Right, absolutely.
If Biden and Buttigieg were on the first page, nobody would ever do anything about it.
Or Klobuchar, right?
Right.
Exactly. Well, look, let's talk about what we do see from the polls that were put out. And this is from an Emerson poll showing that Bernie is doing really well in the state of Iowa. The poll, which surveyed likely Democratic caucus goers from January 30th through February 2nd, shows Sanders at 28%, followed by Democratic primary rival Joe Biden at 21%. Former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Senator Amy Klobuchar are at 15%. 13%, 14%, and 11% respectively.
And I don't know why you read that. Buttigieg didn't want you to read that. It's outrageous to give people facts.
He didn't complain to my manager.
Oh, that's the problem. Okay, by the way, I want to give a shout out to Klobuchar. Because I came in at the beginning of this process with Klobuchar, right? But here she is at the end in the top 5 in Iowa at 11%. That is not bad. So I underestimated Senator Klobuchar, and so good for her to have run a super strong campaign. I don't agree with her policies. She's maybe the most conservative Democrat left in the field, so I've got no interest in that. But I'm telling you, to be fair, hell of a campaign from someone I didn't think had much of a chance. Yes, it was aided and abetted by mainstream media who kept pushing her, but still, they pushed a lot of people who didn't make it, and Klobuchar is there at the end. Nice work.
Okay, I'm gonna let that one go. I don't think you underestimated her at all. I think she's exactly where she should be, and I don't think she's gonna move anywhere else.
No, I don't think she's gonna move. Yeah, so, I don't think she has any chance at all, but I thought she was gonna drop out way earlier. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay, I guess I didn't let it go.
Yeah, apparently not.
Let's move on to some John Kerry related news. So, former Secretary of State John Kerry was overheard by an NBC reporter talking about how disturbed he is that Bernie Sanders might be the Democratic nominee, and he was apparently discussing the possibility of entering the race. Now, he has denied it, but not really. I'll give you his response to this reporting in just a minute. But first, let's go to the details. Here's an MSNBC segment where an NBC reporter explains what happened.
Our colleague Jonathan Allen overheard the former Secretary of State and actually one of the most prominent Biden surrogates who's been campaigning here for him in Iowa, overheard him on a phone call this morning speaking at a hotel lobby where, of course, there are a lot of reporters and campaign staff hanging around. It sounded like the former Secretary of State was talking about what it would take for him to enter the race late. He was talking about concern he had about Bernie Sanders' candidacy and what it would take to prevent him from being the nominee. Now, Kerry, in a comment to Allen after he was reached out to about this, said he was not contemplating a late run. But you wouldn't necessarily understand that by seeing Kerry on the stump. He actually appeared with Joe Biden at 2 of his campaign rallies yesterday, really supporting his candidacy, encouraging. But I asked Kerry last month. We attended one of the events he was doing on his own, and I asked him, "You're campaigning so hard here in Iowa. It seems like you're having so much. Is there any part of you that thinks about getting in this race, or thinks that if you had gotten in that you had a chance?" I want to read his answer to me, and this was a month ago. He says, "Well, I knew I could do it. That wasn't the issue. The issue is my friend Joe Biden's in this race, and what's important is to have a president to get the job done." I said, "So no regrets about getting into the race?" He said, "Your juices get flowing. I'd be a liar if I didn't say you don't come out here and have some fun. Your juices get going."
Okay, so let me just give you a few more details. According to NBC's original report on this, sitting in the lobby restaurant of the Renaissance, Kerry was overheard by an NBC News analyst saying, "Maybe I'm effing deluding myself here." He was, and explaining that to run, he'd have to step down from the board of Bank of America and give up his ability to make paid speeches. Kerry said donors like venture capitalist Doug Hickey would have to, quote, raise a couple of million, adding that such donors now have the reality of Bernie.
Okay, so much to say here. Okay, so, and there's an update from John Kerry's non-denial in a second, and that's really important. So first off, wow, what a betrayal of Biden.
I mean, are you surprised though? You think these people have any loyalty to one another? I'm not surprised by any of that.
Yeah, earlier, the month ago, as the reporter just explained, he was like, "Oh, I didn't run because of my loyalty to Joe Biden."
Yeah, I mean, it's got my juices going. I got my juices going.
Yeah. You made a calculation. You thought you couldn't win. That's why you backed Biden, trying to sneak back into government so you could help Bank of America and all the other folks that you're connected to, right? So that's one, a betrayal of Biden. Number two, it was emphasized in the original story and is now kind of dropped out of a lot of the stories I've read about it. It's that John Kerry was basically saying Biden ain't gonna win. Bernie's gonna beat Biden. And that's why once Biden loses, and it's obvious he's gonna lose, then I'm thinking of coming in. So the people closest to Biden are the ones going, "He ain't gonna win." Remember, Obama said these old white men They were in politics too long. He might have been referring to Bernie as well, but he was definitely referring to Biden. That's Obama saying that about Biden. They're worried about Biden. And I don't know if they think there's something wrong with him, but they think he's gonna lose. Okay, that's for sure. Now we move on to Bernie, and actually the core of this story, which is how the Democratic Party works. I'm gonna call a venture capitalist. They don't like Bernie Sanders. Well, I'm already with the bankers. I'm already on the board of Bank of America. I'm making a ton of money from the bankers, but I'll call someone else in finance. Step off for now, wink, wink. Okay, get finance guys to back me. Get Wall Street to back me.
A couple mil.
Yeah, just throw in a couple of million. What's the big deal? Because they now realize, oh no, Bernie's going to win. Okay, and so now here come the bankers, not bankrolling the Republican Party, bankrolling the Democratic Party, saying, make sure that you defeat that guy who's actually gonna serve the average American. Go get him, John Kerry. And he's thinking about it. He's like, oh, maybe I'll get in. By the way, get in. The water's warm. Come on, John. Come on, get in. See how that turns out for you. Oh, because you had all these genius moderates that they were gonna put into the race. Where are they? Where are they? Oh, they're at the bottom. They're at the absolute bottom. What happened? Okay, yeah, get in, embarrass yourself, humiliate yourself. But understand who corporate Democrats work for. They work for Wall Street. Understand why they can't stand Bernie Sanders, because he works for you.
So when he was asked about that phone conversation, he attempted to deny things, but not really. So let me give you the statement. Asked about the call later Sunday, Kerry said he was absolutely not contemplating joining the Democratic primary race. He reiterated the sentiment in a tweet later saying, quote, any report otherwise is effing or categorically false. Minutes later, he deleted the tweet and reposted it without the expletive. And he also said, quote, a friend who watches too much cable called me wondering whether I'd ever jump into the race late in the game if Democrats were choosing an unelectable nominee.
Yeah. Spare us your gut opinion.
I listed all the reasons I could not possibly do that and would not, and will not under any circumstances do that.
Yeah. Okay, but I want to read you the sentence above that because it's so important. First, he does the same thing that a lot of corporate Democrats do. Sometimes they'll throw in a curse word to.
So edgy.
Yeah, that's right. To substitute in for actual authentic passion, right?
Yep.
So like, oh, I was effing not doing that. But here's the important sentence that came right above the quote that Anna just read. This is a complete and total misinterpretation based on overhearing only one side of a phone conversation. Oh, in other words, you did say it. So you said it, not that they're lying, because it's not like, look, I'm super open to believing that mainstream media might lie, okay? But you're admitting they weren't lying, that you did say that, but they heard one side of a conversation. Who cares about the other side of the conversation? What they heard was all the quotes that we just read you. So apparently that was true. You're saying it's just misinterpreted. Okay, you interpret it any way you like, but you saying I'm gonna call a venture capitalist to give me a couple of $1 million because Bernie might win and we know Biden's gonna lose. I interpret that as exactly what you just said, right? You can interpret it any other way, but you're full of crap.
Yeah, look, I believe the way that it's been interpreted by NBC News, not because I happen to believe or trust everything NBC News reports, but because John Kerry serves on the board of Bank of America. Of course he doesn't like Bernie Sanders. Of course he'd want to get involved in this race to prevent, in his mind, to prevent Bernie Sanders from becoming the Democratic nominee, right? So if you look at his career, if you look at what John Kerry has stood for, this is something that you can definitely believe he would say in regard to Bernie Sanders, especially when it comes to this race where Bernie at the moment, and hopefully for the remainder of this race, is the front runner.
Yeah, and they're forcing us to say this one last thing. They're forcing us. Bernie's unelectable. I might have to jump in. Wait. What do you mean unelectable? Didn't your sorry ass lose to clown George W. Bush? And you have the temerity to talk about unelectable. George W. Bush has an IQ of 68 or so. He's one of the dumbest people alive. Yes, Trump managed to outdumb him. But remember, Bush was an absolute fool. And he had gotten us into the debacle that is the Iraq War. He'd already screwed up so many different things. It was hard to lose to Bush. And John Kerry, Mr. Electable, came in and bungled that election. Gave that election away like a fool. And now you have the temerity to talk to us about who is and is not electable? Oh, we need someone electable like John Kerry or Hillary Clinton. Oh, that's an interesting theory. Did either one of them get elected? No, they both lost. And they both lost to idiots. But we should go with Bernie Sanders because he's not electable, only the establishment is. I think you might be misunderstanding that word. Someone who loses an election is by definition not electable.
Well, one other person who thinks that Bernie Sanders is not electable is Chris Matthews. Get a load of what he had to say on Morning Joe this morning. So we have that story, and we will also give you an update on the whole Rashida Tlaib booing Hillary Clinton story from the weekend.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
We'll be right back.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Guys, it's exciting times. Iowa caucuses tonight. You wanna know what the latest poll in New Hampshire is, which is next week? Bernie up by 15. That's an Emerson poll. NBC News Wall Street Journal poll came out a couple of days ago. Nationwide, Sanders has taken the lead. For the first time, +1 Sanders. Now, +1 is basically a statistical tie. A poll came out after that with Biden with a tiny bit of lead over Sanders, but Sanders gaining nationally, and meanwhile, starting to maybe pull away in Iowa. Obviously, we're gonna find out tonight. And then in New Hampshire, seems to be running away with it. So here comes Bernie. Tonight is everything, guys. All of these elections over the next 4 weeks, we're gonna know. Very, very likely, we're gonna know who the next president is. This giant long buildup, and it might be over in 4 weeks. So tonight, we got the Iowa coverage right here, okay? We got a big show right now. Then we got Crystal Ball, we got Amanda Turtle from Huffington Post, and then we got a post game for the members, tyt.com/join, and then we pick it right back up with Iowa coverage starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. Me, Anna, John, Ben is in today, and Emma's in Iowa, and she's gonna join us from Iowa. And by the way, tomorrow, State of the Union. Don't miss all these giant news events. Obviously, next week, New Hampshire, State of the Union tomorrow with play-by-play analysis, as always. John, Anna, and JR with you guys. Got a great crew here. All right, now let me read you just a couple of quotes or comments here. Megan E was thinking the same thing we were in the member section. So is Kerry an electable nominee? I wonder if we have any evidence if he would be or not. Sarcasm. Okay, I love that, Megan. I love all of our members, and we do the show together, tyt.com/join. And I also love YouTube Super Chat, 2 people from there. Rexol says, your giddiness is making me giddy too. Thank you. And Almighty Ox says, caucusing tonight, a bit nervous, large warn following here. Ooh, that's a report from in the field in Iowa. So keep those coming. And if you want to tweet to us too, if you're not a member, #TYT live. And obviously we do prioritize members, and YouTube Super Chats also helps the show. Guys, let's find out what happens tonight. And don't get too excited yet, because it will be crushing if Bernie loses, and you never know. This polling is not overly reliable. Well, I'll talk more about that during the Iowa coverage though. Okay, what's next, Anna?
All right. Two things are true regarding Chris Matthews. Number one, he's obsessed with Tip O'Neill. It's all he seems to talk about. Number two, he has great disdain for Bernie Sanders, and that was certainly clear during a recent segment on Morning Joe. Take a look.
I'm not happy. I'm not happy with this field. I think they got to find a candidate for president that could beat Trump.
And you don't think anybody in this field
I'm
can beat
looking.
Trump?
I'm still looking.
Still looking.
What's the problem?
Obvious problems. They're all problems. Bernie Sanders is not going to be president of the United States. Okay? I went back to the 72 race. I was a young volunteer for the DNC. I was working for a senator from Utah at the time. I've got to tell you, it feels a lot like it. A lot of giddiness, a lot of excitement, a thrill about this guy.
You're saying a lot like McGovern?
Well, exactly, because he was very excited. The party completely blew away a really good candidate like Muskie, a really good guy, blew him right out of the water because he had some issues.
So those are some of his thoughts. I want to go to the next video real quick, and then we'll discuss.
Bernie's going to ride high, and he's finally going to get scrutiny about his whole life, his ideology, his whole life, who did he root for all his life. Who is this guy ideologically? It's not just the nice, good stuff like healthcare. Why does he say the stuff he does about Maduro and people like that? Why does he say Denmark one week and then somebody else? I mean, people got to figure out who the guy is. Yeah. I think I know because I've dealt with these guys most of my adult life. They're usually the guys at the card tables at an war rally. There's some old guy with some old literature from this socialist party to that, trying to sell it, trying to latch on to the anti-war movement. There's always guys like that. And they're usually, as Howard Fine once said, non-negotiable demands, yelling up at the administration building during the anti-war movement. I know him, but I think the country's going to get to know him. I think we got a problem. We'll see.
I know this guy. He's coming after my taxes. He's coming after my money. He's an anti-war movement. I know these guys. I know these guys. I mean, come on, just tell the truth. Just tell the truth. I mean, he has a significant lead over other Democratic candidates. They keep pretending like the thing that they're most concerned about is that he's unelectable, when in reality, he has an economic message that resonates across the board, regardless of political ideology. They don't want him to be the Democratic nominee. And despite their best efforts to destroy his chances, he persists. He has seen a rise in the polls, and he will continue to see a rise in the polls. Sorry, Chris Matthews, just be honest with your audience. You're worried about paying more in taxes. You're worried about being irrelevant, even though at this point in your career, you should be irrelevant.
So he went back to 1972 for that example, which they always do. Like, oh, did you know about 1972? Yeah, we all know about 1972. Chris, I don't know if you know this. There's this thing called the internet, and things have changed a little bit. So number one, it allows us to look up 1972 if we didn't know it, okay? And number two, it's all of your decades-old analogies and metaphors don't work anymore. It's a totally different world. Tip O'Neill said all politics is local. Dude, at the time, there's no internet. Yes, it's local because everybody's like, oh, what did the local papers say? Now all the local papers are out of business. Oh, well, you know what Tip O'Neill said in the year 1732? I don't care. Okay, well, if you have these radical candidates, that's not an establishment figure, where they're unelectable. Well, let me go back to an ancient election as well. You're going back to 72. I'll go all the way back to 2016, the last election, where the candidate you declared unelectable, Donald Trump, got elected. Mm-hmm. How many times did you say that on air, Chris? There's no way Trump can win. And you and all your buddies, to be fair to Chris Matthews, it isn't personal. It's all of them. There's no way Donald Trump can win. There's no way Donald Trump can win. And we here, even though we despise the man, said he could win. We were right, you were wrong. Did you ever learn anything from that? No, you told us Hillary Clinton was the most electable person ever, yet she didn't get elected. Now when we point that out, you get so offended. But my God, the important thing here is to actually pick someone who could beat Donald Trump. You're like, that's right, we need someone like Hillary Clinton. But she didn't get elected. We need someone that is not the same. We need someone who is different that could beat Donald Trump. And Donald Trump won, why? Because of fake populism. In real populism beats fake populism. Establishment ass-hattery does not beat populism. We just saw it. You don't have to go back to 72. So, and he's like, I know who this guy is. What does that mean? What does that mean? I know who this guy is. And he said, finally, we're gonna do scrutiny of Bernie Sanders.
I know.
Are you kidding me?
Thank you for bringing that up, because that was one of the things I wanted to comment on, but he said so many ridiculous things in that clip that I forgot about that. So he's been facing scrutiny since 2016, nonstop. It doesn't end. I mean, while the Democrats keep claiming that they care about party unity, you have Hillary Clinton still lying about him. Last Friday, she was on a podcast completely lying about Bernie Sanders, referring to him as undemocratic, as not doing enough for party unity back in 2016, even as he rallied in 39 to 40 different rallies on her behalf to help her get elected. I mean, come on. All he gets is scrutiny. Oh, he's a socialist, he's unelectable. They go, to his political affiliation. He's not a registered Democrat in Vermont. I mean, how much more do they want? I mean, all they do is go after him.
No, they're so blinded. They're like, no, we need to have good electable candidates. Like the person sitting next to me, Claire McCaskill. Claire, tell us how you won the last election. Oh, right, you lost the last election by being an establishment candidate in Missouri. And we all said you were an awesome candidate and we were all wrong. But you know what? We get paid millions of dollars every single year to be wrong.
That's right.
Because we're not actually trying to bring you news, we're trying to bring you propaganda about how you have to pick the person who's gonna give us the tax cuts.
It's incredible how people who identify as Democrats are fighting so hard to destroy the front runner. And again, it's not just because I like Bernie Sanders, I like his policies. I mean, even if you take a step back and you put your own biases aside, who in this race has an economic message, an economic populist message that resonates across the board? Why is it that so many people switched parties and voted for Trump in the last election? Because he was this fake populist who pretended like he cared about bringing jobs back to America, who pretended like he cared about those who had been neglected by previous administrations. Now you have someone who doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk, and that's Bernie Sanders. He has a long record that we can look at thanks to the internet and confirm that he's not some phony, someone who's actually concerned about the well-being of Americans. That's Bernie Sanders. That's why he resonates with so many people. Now, weirdly enough, I just want to juxtapose what Chris Matthews said to what another Bernie hater had to say, Bill Maher. Recently, Bill Maher said something about Bernie Sanders that was shocking to me, something that I already recognized, I already knew about, but hearing it from someone who's been so critical of Bernie was fascinating. Now, what you're about to see is Bill Maher saying something that's 100% correct about Bernie Sanders, and I want to dissect it further after we watch. Take a look.
I like Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, but I feel mostly, or have said that, somebody like Pete or Amy Klobuchar could win more easily. But I tell you why Bernie Sanders is attractive to me now, because he's the only Democrat who, like Trump, has an army. Who, when it gets to this other level, he's got a bunch of bad who will get in the streets.
What he's trying to say there is, look, Bernie Sanders has a loyal following. And they will fight, they will stop at nothing. They will fight for him, they will do what it takes to get him elected. And there's something powerful about that, because while I don't like drawing any type of similarities between Trump and Bernie, they're obviously very different people. The one thing that I do see in terms of a similarity is that both Trump and Bernie do have a very loyal following. And there was a recent poll done, we shared it on the show, that showed that out of all of the Democratic candidates, Bernie Sanders has voters who are sticking by his side. They're not, wavering in any way. And I thought it was interesting that Bill Maher brought that up. And so when they talk about electability, Bernie Sanders doesn't have fair weather fans. He has ardent supporters who will fight by his side. And it's not just about this election. You need supporters like that who will help you get things done once you're elected.
The rest of the candidates on the Democratic side have no energy. So how are they gonna get people to volunteer for them? How are they gonna get people to make sure they're talking to their family and friends and dragging them to the polls and making sure they vote, et cetera? That's how you win elections. But these people on cable news have no earthly idea. You know what's interesting is Donald Trump Jr. and Ben Shapiro within the last 24 hours said, don't underestimate Bernie Sanders.
Right.
And so like we warned about Trump, now you got Shapiro warning about Sanders from his side, because they're seeing there's actual electricity, there's energy, there's masses of people who are highly motivated to get this person to win.
Yep.
That's how you win elections. That's what makes you electable, you morons on cable news.
But the problem is, it's not that they see him as unelectable. I think that the reality is they see him as very electable, and that's what concerns them the most. And just to give you some numbers to back up what you were just saying. In a speech Saturday night, Sanders said that his canvassers had knocked on more than 500,000 doors in Iowa this year.
But so did Delaney's. Oh no, that's right, they did.
Who?
Exactly. Okay, so now, guys, you know what the press is trying to do now? I mean, the idea that Bernie didn't get scrutiny is hilarious. I showed you guys at the time when he announced this time around, Washington Post ran 4 columns that day attacking him. Not one that was positive, all 4 attacking him. But my favorite was one saying that his crowd sizes will diminish and he'll be like a one-hit wonder. I reposted that over the weekend next to a reporter showing a giant crowd for Bernie in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Okay, what happened to diminishing crowds? Are you guys ever going to admit how wrong your analysis is? How you hire people on purpose who don't care about facts at all, but drive an agenda. Speaking of that agenda, so I started getting calls from reporters. You know what they're doing now? And you might have seen some of those articles now. Oh, Bernie Sanders supporters are online are a real problem. You know, they raise their voice sometimes, and it's unacceptable. It's against civility. Oh, I see. You're allowed to control the entire media and write negative article after negative article. Have Chris Matthews go and attack Bernie Sanders, have everybody attack Bernie Sanders 24/7 on every cable station, every one of them, right? But if someone says something on social media, how dare you? Put him down, put him down. Don't let anyone ever say something that we have not agreed to, because that would not manufacture consent. Finally, what you just saw from Chris Matthews is not on Fox News. That's on MSNBC, what Washington considers the left-wing channel. Hilarious.
All right, the Rashida Tlaib story is lengthy, it's meaty. I wanna take a break, so we have a good portion of time to dedicate to that and more. So we'll do that when we return. We'll be right back.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Right back.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment.
All right, back on the Young Turks. So I can't stand it. I'm so excited about Iowa tonight. Look, guys, there's a third possibility. 1, 2 we've already talked about, which is 1, it could be stunning if he loses. And all the Chris Matthews of the world are going to be elated.
I just want the day to be over so badly. You have no idea.
No, I'm enjoying every minute of it.
And
no,
why would you enjoy this? Like, I hate anticipation. It's the worst.
No, it's the best. Or debate after the show. Is anticipation the best or the worst? Okay. Or Bernie Sanders wins and, oh my God, here we go, right? Or the third possibility is Bernie Sanders wins by a lot.
I'll take that.
Okay, in which case, hope ignited throughout the country, also panic.
No, but that's
panic
the thing.
in Washington and New York. Their hair will be on. Bernie won by how much?
I want to know what the reaction is going to be by those people, right? So are they going to apply even more aggressive scrutiny, or are they going to back? Yeah, that's what I'm guessing too. Because we all know that their whole thing about like, beating Trump is the most important thing. I don't believe them. I don't believe them.
No way.
Yeah.
Here comes the kitchen sink. On the other hand, if Biden or Buttigieg wins Iowa, they'll all be like, that's it, unity. No more. Bernie's got to drop out. Unity. You don't criticize Biden. Don't talk about how he wanted to cut Social Security. Don't talk about all the things. Don't talk about how he crushed students with all that student debt. Okay, unity, right? If Bernie wins, kitchen sink. They're going to attack him with everything they've got.
100%.
All of television will be united. We will have unity. Television and New York Times, Washington Post, NPR, all of them will be united in their fury against Bernie Sanders and progressives.
You know, I've been in a weird mood all day, and I don't know. I didn't know why, and it's because I'm weirdly I'm nervous. I don't like the anticipation. The more you talk about it, my stomach hurts. So let's go.
Okay, I got you. So let me read a bunch of your quotes. Toss a coin to your progressive candidate, writes in. I'm fairly convinced we can't really trust any of the polling. I don't think any of the pollsters really know how to poll millennials and Gen Z when we won't answer our phones for unknown numbers. You know what? I actually want to talk about it in the post game. Today we got a short post game for the members, but it's an important one, so don't miss it, because I'm going to tell you about what's wrong with polling. I now know with great certainty what's wrong with polling, and I want to talk about that. So TYT.com/join to become a member and get the full 3-hour show. And as you can tell, we're the one independent media here that doesn't go along with what the rest of the mainstream media does. Speaking of which, next member comment, Gabby Marita. Chris Matthews thinks I won't vote for him means the same thing as unelectable. How'd that work out for you in 2016, Chris? Exactly. Jeff Waldorf on Twitter using hashtag TYT Live. There's nothing better than feasting on the salty tears of scared millionaires. Jess Ortega says, you're both on fire tonight, not even a half an hour into the show, and we've already passed 20,000 watching. Hashtag I am TYT, hashtag TYT Army. Thank you for reporting in a way I can understand. Thank you, Jess. I appreciate that. By the way, we're now at about 30,000.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. 30,000 viewers, so we should get to the rest of the news.
Last one, roses for Bernie. Weird that the establishment thinks the most popular candidate can't win. Great point, roses for Bernie. All right, let's do it.
All right, let's talk about some pearl clutching that happened over the weekend. So, the political establishment absolutely lost it over a short clip that went viral on social media. It was featuring Representative Rashida Tlaib, and she was at a rally event on behalf of Bernie Sanders. She has endorsed Bernie Sanders, so it makes sense that she would be there. And she was also there with Representative Jayapal and Ilhan Omar. Here's what happened, take a look.
Iowa, we have 3 days. I don't remember if you guys remember last week when someone by the name of Hillary Clinton said that we're not gonna boo, we're classy here. Classy.
I'll boo, boo. You all know I can't be quiet. No, we're gonna boo. That's all right. The haters will shut up on Monday when we win.
There we go. I was gonna say, a hater said, by the name of Hillary Clinton, we calling names out here, taking shots, that nobody likes Bernie Sanders.
And that was the only shot that Hillary Clinton took against Bernie Sanders. In fact, the reaction from Rashida Tlaib had a lot to do with some of the more recent statements that Hillary Clinton had made in regard to Bernie Sanders. She continues to lie about how much Bernie Sanders fought in order to help Hillary Clinton get elected after she was the Democratic nominee in 2016. Now, before I get to all those details, I do want to give you some of the pearl clutching that happened by people who have no business clutching any pearls whatsoever. Let's start off with Kellyanne Conway, of all people, saying this. This is amazing. Mean Girls squad led by Rashida Tlaib boo Hillary Clinton at Bernie Sanders rally. Are you kidding me right now? Like, that's Kellyanne Conway. So, I mean, look, we all know what Kellyanne Conway stands for. For her to criticize anyone for being mean is ridiculous.
No, hold on. We're not moving on until we point out something very important. Kellyanne Conway, you're worried that they booed Hillary Clinton? Your candidate at the time and now the person you work for as president chanted lock her up about the same Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
One was like, hey, we don't like that Hillary Clinton has personally insulted Bernie Sanders right before an election. The other one is, we don't like Hillary Clinton, so we want to imprison her. Crowds, thousands of Republicans chanting, lock her up, lock her up. Now you think that you're offended by progressives booing Hillary Clinton? Please spare us, you unbelievable, gargantuan liar and hypocrite. I don't want to hear anything from you. Everything that comes out of your mouth is poison. So
100%.
please go away.
So then you have some people on the left, theoretically, also clutching their pearls. Here's one example. I consider this highly inappropriate and wonder about Rashida's maturity level, if not her judgment. We need unity, not someone throwing boos at the woman who warned us that we would be exactly where we are today.
What do you mean? We warned you she would lose. We were right. But okay, hold on. This is more important. So you're talking about how you need unity. But Hillary Clinton is the one that is going out right now before the voting starts going, now Bernie's bad. No one likes Bernie. No one wants to work with Bernie. Bernie's terrible. But what she's doing doesn't hurt unity. But if you say, hey, could you not do that? Hey, that's not a good thing. Hey, you know what? I'm so mad about what you said, which that I booed, right? I can't believe it, lack of unity. Can you believe these monsters? I mean, how much can we take of your hypocrisy? It's maddening, and it's maddening that you say it with a straight face as if you're not being unbelievably hypocritical.
What's incredible, though, is Rashida Tlaib has the courage to speak her mind openly, transparently. She doesn't like Hillary Clinton, and I think she doesn't like Hillary Clinton for a very legitimate reason, and it's because of the trash talking that we've been seeing from Hillary behind the scenes as this race goes on. So like I said, last Friday, during an appearance on a podcast, Hillary Clinton started lying about Bernie Sanders yet again. Now, to give you context, Bernie Sanders did as many as 40 rallies on her behalf in 2016, okay? I'll give you specific details on how insanely packed his schedule was so he could go out and do those rallies for her. But it didn't matter because she's still spreading absolute lies like what you're about to hear.
One of the things that you said in the interviews around that was that Senator Sanders did not have a lot of colleagues in the Senate. That was interpreted by many as saying that nobody liked him at all. There's such a big magnifying glass on anything you say surrounding him. I mean, did you expect to get that kind of response?
No.
Did you know when you said it?
No, I mean, I said it like a year and a half ago. It was 15 seconds in a 4-hour documentary. But I think people need to have to really think hard about who can beat Trump. And it's not the popular vote, as I learned to my own grave disappointment. I got more votes than anybody except Barack Obama once. So it's not the popular vote. It's the Electoral College. And those are going to be tough states to win. So I just want us to be really focused on winning. That's all I care about.
So on that point, I mean, Senator Sanders does have he has a very dedicated base of support. Whether he's the nominee, whether he's not the nominee, he does have a big hand. He has a lot of influence. So what do you think that he can do, whether he's the nominee or not nominee, to help get to that point of unifying people against Trump?
Well, he can do it, for one. That's not our experience from 2016.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
It's unbelievable.
All right.
And let me just clarify one thing. In the very beginning, when she's asked about saying, hey, you said nobody likes Bernie Sanders. Remember the context in which she said that. She said that in the context of other lawmakers because Bernie Sanders is a principled politician who's unwavering when it comes to his ethics, his morals, what he believes in. And so yeah, there are lawmakers, especially in the Democratic Party, who don't like him because he's uncompromising or you can't compromise him. But when she answered that question in the podcast, she tried to make it seem like she was referring to electability, right? But she wasn't referring to voters not liking him in the original statement. She was talking about lawmakers not liking him. So it's funny how she totally twisted that in the context of this podcast. And then go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, look, I just can't stomach Hillary Clinton lecturing us on electability versus Donald Trump. It's just an affront to logic that I can't stand. We're all gonna sit here and go, oh yeah, Hillary Clinton, please tell us how to beat Donald Trump. All right, so then she says, oh, I don't know that he unified. She barely did any rallies for Barack Obama.
Oh, but she lies about that in the podcast.
Okay, so we're gonna get to that.
Yeah.
All right, meanwhile, Bernie did dozens of rallies. No good deed ever goes unpunished, okay, for her. Now, the stat that the press loves to throw around is, did you know that 12% of Bernie Sanders voters did not wind up voting for Hillary Clinton? Now, what they don't tell you is two massively important facts. One is a lot of those 12% were not Democrats. They were independents and Republicans that were coming to the Democratic Party to vote for Bernie Sanders, hence why he was more electable. And then they went back and said, well, I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton. But the more important stat is, do you know how many Hillary Clinton voters didn't vote for Barack Obama and actually did vote for John McCain? 25%. More than twice as many. Why? Because Hillary Clinton did almost nothing to unify. Remember, she's the one that smeared Obama as a Muslim in the first place before the Republicans ever did it. She put out that picture of him in Kenyan garb.
Right, in a turban.
Yes.
In an effort to tank his campaign by implying that he's a Muslim that can't be trusted. That's what her campaign did. So please spare me the pearl clutching in regard to Rashida Tlaib sharing a very real human moment in booing someone who quite honestly deserves to be booed in how she's trying to destroy the Democratic frontrunner in this election against Donald Trump.
So I want to say two more things about this. One is another quote from Hillary Clinton. She said, that cannot happen again. But she went on to say, I don't care who the nominee is, I don't care. Okay, that sounds like she might support Bernie Sanders. She's walking back the comment. Hold on, very next sentence. As long as it's somebody who can win. So wait, all of a sudden now there's a qualifier. If Hillary Clinton thinks you can't win, then apparently she's not going to support you.
Right.
Whether the Democratic voters think you can win, that's why they elect you. She goes, Democratic voters, they were always meddlesome and troubling to begin with. If I think, and all my millionaire and billionaire friends think you can't win, then I might not support you. She goes on to say, and as long as it's somebody who understands politics is the art of addition and not subtraction. Okay, but wait a minute. Bernie Sanders added independents, you took them away. But what she's referring to is there's some moderate, rich Republicans in the suburbs that won't vote for Bernie Sanders. So I think it's subtraction. So if it's not, but I won't support him if he does subtraction. I won't support him if I think I can't win. So in other words, you're not supporting him. That's what in fact, you know how I know you're not supporting him? You're coming out and talking crap about him right before the Iowa caucus.
Completely trashing him.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. So let's go back to the lies about how she behaved in the 2008 primary against Obama, because she not only trashed Bernie, but tried to pretend as though she was above the fray in 2008. Let's take a look.
I know what it's like to lose a hard-fought primary. I got more votes than Barack Obama in 2008, but fewer delegates. I immediately ended my campaign. I endorsed him. I appeared with him. I went to the convention where my delegates really wanted to cast their votes for me because they'd worked really hard for me. And I said, no, I'm going to go to the floor of the convention. I'm going to move his nomination by acclamation. Then I did 100 events for him. Okay. Contrast that to what did not happen in 2016. And that cannot happen again.
She lied. I mean, the lies are endless in this podcast. So first, she tried to make it appear as though she conceded in the 2008 primary right away. That is not the case. In fact, she did something loathsome in explaining why she insisted on remaining in that race, even though it became more and more clear that she had no chance in winning the primary against Obama. So this is an article from the New York Times. It's from May 24th, 2008. May 24th, 2008, meaning that she was still in the race in May of 2008. Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton defended staying in the Democratic nominating contest on Friday by pointing out that her husband had not wrapped up the nomination until June 1992, adding, quote, "We all remember Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in June in California."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes, I had forgotten
Yeah,
that.
so talk a big talk about how you're above it all and how you're so great. But in reality, you were sitting there salivating at the thought of Obama getting assassinated so you'd be the Democratic nominee. That's who Hillary Clinton is. So spare me the pearl clutching about how Rashida Tlaib said boo. You know what? Boo. That's what she deserves. That's what Hillary Clinton deserves. But I have more. Let me give you more.
Can I just say?
Trash. That is a trashy thing to do, to say the least.
Imagine if Bernie Sanders had alluded to, well, maybe Hillary Clinton gets assassinated. What do you think would have happened? He'd have been driven out of politics completely. I mean, it would have been the fury that would have been attached to that would be unimaginable. She says it about Obama, we move on. Now, imagine if Bernie Sanders had said about Hillary Clinton, no one likes her. he would have been shredded. How could you say that about Hillary Clinton? She says it about him. They say, oh, Rashida's got to apologize. She did, right? Where's Hillary Clinton's apology for saying nobody likes Bernie? A personal attack. A personal attack. Where's the apology? Is all the media demanding an apology? Has she issued an apology? No.
Of course
double
not.
standard after double standard. And then they wonder why we get frustrated on social media.
Yeah, so then she says that she did 100 rallies. 100 events.
That's a lot. I don't remember it being 100.
Wow, that's a lot of events.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Is that really what you did? No, that's not what she did. She did 14.
14.
She did 14 when Bernie did, some reports say 39, others say 40. But it was 39 or 40 events, okay, on her behalf. Let's go to some of the reporting at the time. This is from the Wall Street Journal, October of 2016. This is the headline. Bernie Sanders' packed schedule with campaign stops for Hillary Clinton. On Wednesday, he was in Iowa. On Thursday, he made 4 stops in Michigan. And on Friday, he traveled to Maine. On Saturday, he headlines a pair of events in Pennsylvania with more stops to come.
The Hillary Clinton team got questions from Donna Brazile, who at the time was a CNN contributor, and never told Bernie Sanders, never told anyone else, said thank you very much, and willingly cheated in that debate. Let alone the limited number of debates, let alone the money laundering that the DNC did through the states for Hillary Clinton's millionaire donors. All of that and much more. He still did 39 rallies for her. He did 4 rallies in Michigan just in that one day. She did 0 in Michigan for her own campaign. And she then lies and says she did 100 for Obama when she only did 14. But there's never any accountability for Hillary Clinton in the mainstream media. You know, they to Hillary Clinton, but if you say, hey, you know what? Maybe you didn't say the right thing there. Oh, how could you? Lack of civility, lack of unity. And the fact that they can't see that bias shows you how insanely biased they are, because every one of them thinks the same goddamn thing. Yep. And so they just can't relate to real people ever, ever, ever.
If anyone actually in the legacy media outlets, if they actually genuinely care about party unity, stop giving this woman any attention. She's irrelevant, she's not running. There's no reason why she's part of the discourse right now. And all she wants to do is spread her toxic bitterness in this race. And there's way too much on the line to allow that to happen. One final thing I do want to make sure we mention in the context of this story is how Rashida Tlaib responded to the backlash. Now, I would say the response was 50-50. There were supporters who said, you know what, do you? Okay, speak your mind. I believe this is what female empowerment is. This is political speech. It's strong, it's aggressive. I don't have a problem with it, especially when it comes to the establishment and Hillary Clinton trashing candidates the way that she's been doing. But she did release a statement via Twitter, and here's what she said. I'm so incredibly in love with the movement that our campaign of Not Me, Us has created. This makes me protective over it and frustrated by attempts to dismiss the strength and diversity of our movement. In this instance, I allowed my disappointment with Secretary Clinton's latest comments about Senator Sanders and his supporters get the best of me. You all, my sisters in service on stage, and our movement deserve better. I will continue to strive to come from a place of love and not react in the same way of those who are against what we are building in this country. This is about building a just and equitable future for my 2 boys, children across the country and future generations.
And what is she, after putting out a classy statement like that, what does she get? They said that's technically not an apology. It's not enough. We need you to kneel down.
She doesn't know. She doesn't need to apologize. No. I think that her authentic moment should be applauded, and we need a little bit more honesty. Because while Hillary Clinton and her campaign will release pictures of candidates in turbans to try to trash them, and they do it secretly in like these shadowy ways, at least Rashida Tlaib calls it like it is, and she's transparent and honest. And that's something that should be applauded.
I'll tell you what I would have done, I'll tell you what Bernie's team did. What I would have done is, oh no, I'm super happy to apologize to Hillary Clinton. The minute she apologizes to Bernie Sanders for saying that no one likes him, it's a personal attack, and I'm sure that Secretary Clinton's gonna apologize to him any minute, and when she does, I will issue my apology to her, which seems fair. Because then what that would have done is draw attention to, oh wait a minute, that's true, Hillary Clinton never did apologize, did she?
Right.
And what she did was a far worse personal attack.
Definitely.
And then now, finally, the Bernie Sanders campaign, his campaign manager, Fast Secure, what did they say about Rashida? Well, they said this, Rashida, you're all good. We love your passion and conviction. don't change.
I love it.
There you go.
That's the right answer.
Correct answer for Faz Shakir and Bernie Sanders' campaign.
All right, when we come back from the break, we will discuss Amy Klobuchar's prosecutorial record. There's one particular case that's getting a lot of attention lately for good reason. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.